In recent years, it seems like time lapses have entered the world of videography in a big way. Really, it has always been there in one rudimentary form or another. Regardless of skill level, time lapse has definitely become one of the most popular options among new creators. But what is time lapse and how does it work in the Pocket 4K? That question and more are ones that I will answer for you in today's video. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe below and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with all of our videos. Let's get started. Before we get into the time lapses for the Pocket 4K, let's quickly discuss what a time lapse is. Everybody's quick reference best friend, Wikipedia, defines it as a technique whereby the frequency at the film frames are captured, aka the frame rate, is much more spread out than the frequency used to view the sequence. So what does this mean? Well, the end result of a time lapse is right in the name. After shooting with this setting, time will appear to move faster in the finished product than what was actually shot. This is the lapsing part of the time lapse. A really good example of the use of time lapse is the opening credit scene for the Netflix series House of Cards. All the environmental elements in the various shots, the clouds, traffic, shifting foliage, and changeover from day to night look to be going in fast forward motion while the overlaid credits themselves are moving in real time. This is a time lapse. This, of course, is just one specific case of a time lapse, and they vary greatly in style and speed. But what about the Pocket 4K? Time lapse was not an option that was available when this camera was first released. Of course, this was a disappointment to many early adopters, and rightly so. The issue of time lapses was corrected by Blackmagic Design with the update to firmware version 1.2. Up to that point, if you had this camera and wanted to shoot time lapses, it was doable, but you had to manipulate a lot of different settings to make it work. This is way easier now. Let's take a look at how to turn on time lapse in your device. To turn this feature on, start by going to your record settings and go to the record option. The toggle to turn time lapse on and off is the first thing you see when you get there, so you're already off to a good start. To the right of the toggle, you have the options available to choose how quickly or slowly you want your time lapse to shoot. You can set this to seconds, minutes, or frames. Unless you are not familiar with how these different time-lapse settings work in general, the guesswork here should be pretty minimal. And if you need some advice on general time-lapse settings, I've included a link in the description to help. Once you have this set, then you are ready to shoot your time-lapse. An important thing to note here is to make sure to go back and push that time-lapse toggle back to the off position when you're done. The last thing you probably want is your entire project being a time-lapse. Unless you are, of course, doing some kind of crazy art school project that messes with perceptions. In that case, have fun. Now, depending on what you're shooting and what result you want from that shot, there are additional settings you may or may not need to manipulate to get the desired result from your time-lapse shots. So here are some tips from my personal experience shooting time lapses with this camera. Don't use the time-lapse settings. Now, I know this feels pretty contradictory to the actual title of this video, and I'm not saying to never use time-lapse features, but consider just straight filming it. I kind of actually like doing this because I have a lot more control over the variable speed of it in post. It helps sometimes when you don't know how long you need the time-lapse to be, to have that option to extend it, slow it down, speed it up, etc., without having to worry about skipping because it doesn't have enough frames to do what you want it to do. While this method can kill you on memory and limits you on motion blur, it can be worth it, especially if you don't have very long somewhere. The longest I would typically film a time lapse like this would be maybe like 10 to 25 minutes. Usually for me, 10 minutes gives me enough to work with, but getting closer to 15 to 20 gives a lot more variability. Secondly, make sure you adjust your bitrate settings. No matter which way you decide to film a time lapse, always look at your bitrate. This really helps in low light situations before sunrise or during sunset, helping to clean up the image a little bit more. If you can afford it, I would opt for constant quality or at least hit a constant bitrate of 5:1. I really just find the extra bitrate helps smooth out the noise a little bit and helps with the complex movements as well. And lastly, understanding your ISO. On this channel, I've already made a video discussing the dual ISO on the Pocket 4K. There's a link in the description for that video if you're interested in diving in a little bit deeper. When filming a time lapse, you really need to understand how this camera exposes with its ISO systems. I found out, for me, the best way is to do it with ISO at 3200 for a sunrise, making sure the aperture is set accordingly for that extra light coming through. Now, in my experience, it's much easier to recover the highlights in the camera than to recover the shadows. And again, I'm not trying to suggest that you should use 3200 ISO in every single situation for a sunrise, because I don't either. it's best to get a handle on how the Pocket 4K responds in different situations. No tutorial will ever be able to accurately tell you what your settings should be at for every single situation. The best I can do for you is to share with you my experience with the camera, some technical knowledge on how the camera works, and encourage you to experiment with that extra bit of knowledge you receive from this video, and just give you a general starting point. So that brings us to the final question. Should you use the Pocket 4K for shooting time lapses? As with most things that I take apart and discuss in my videos, the answer to this question really comes down to you. If your project does not include a ton of time-lapse shots, just a couple here or there, then the Pocket 4K is a decent option and you can mostly get away with it. It's also excellent for those of you with smaller budgets who can, not just go out and buy multiple different cameras for multiple different purposes. That being said, there are some videographers out there who will have a separate camera for just time lapses, and generally the Pocket 4K is not it. Much of this is due to the limitations with shutter angles or shutter speed that seems to bottom out at a speed of 1/5 of a second. And this limited exposure really kills the amount of motion blur and different styles that you can achieve with this camera. You can fix some of it in post and add in motion blur by using frame stacking techniques and applying different After Effects plugins like Echo or CC Wide Time, among others. But I would recommend using the Pocket 4K only for specific time-lapse purposes or with the knowledge that you will have to do some post-processing work on it later. If time lapses are what you really need for your project and it's critical to get a certain style of shot, this camera is not the one to use. As always, I love to receive your feedback on how I'm wrong or if you have any questions about this topic of the camera. I'd be happy to respond to your questions or make video notes on elements I may have missed in this video. Thanks for watching today's episode, and be sure to subscribe to our channel below and hit the notification bell to keep up to date with all of our latest videos. Until next time, this is John Owens with Frame Voyager.